This is One on One. Welcome to One on One. I'm Steve Adubato. It is my pleasure to introduce for the first time with us. He is Bob Tufts. He is a patient advocate and is connected to an organization called MyLifeIsWorthIt.org, and you are a cancer survivor.
Yes, sir, I am. I was diagnosed in 2009, and here I am now over 5.5 years later, despite the odds, still here, still kicking, and still out here ready to help other patients who had myeloma.
This organization, as we put up the website, MyLifeIsWorthIt.org, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to what?
Helping patients basically get access to care. Patients should be at the center of everything that goes on. Right now we're having battles that go on basically on the outskirts of what happens, but it should be about the doctor and patient choice in the process.
It's not?
It's not. Doctors are being limited in what they can prescribe right now. Doctors are being limited by formularies, by insurance companies, and patients are not being fully informed of the entire process, what they can and cannot do. And when you consider the patients pay the premiums, taxes which pay premiums, co-pays, they're the ones funding the system. And if you're talking about any restriction on care basically due to cost, let's be honest, it's not about any quote-unquote value. The patient has to be at the table. You can't be lecturing them from a podium. You can't be making statements that doctors are somehow doing unnecessary tests. Does that happen? Yes. But the doctors are our allies in the process. They do tests because they're thorough. My doctor, who was very thorough, did the test on me and found out I had a very aggressive form of myeloma. If he didn't do that test, it was 3 months later, what could have happened? I don't know.
So it's interesting because there's a debate that's been raging. You know, it's how you frame the debate, but often the debate gets framed in this way. We can't be spending money, these limited dollars that the healthcare system has. You can't be spending those dollars if, in fact, someone is in a very compromised medical situation with an advanced form of cancer or a very serious cancer. Someone else, you know, they're in a different situation. Is that rationing?
Very much rationing.
People don't like to use that word, though, right?
We don't, because it basically goes into a political realm. I want to take this away from politics, and we do. We want to make it a patient-led grassroots advocacy. Think of
Say it again, a patient-led
grassroots advocacy. Think about the HIV things. It wasn't pure activists in the street. It was advocates, people sharing information, people going around, people talking to each other, sharing information. They cut through red tape and paperwork and got cures out within 4 years. There's no reason it should take 12 years of FDA approval for drugs. And in my case, the drug I take, which has saved my life, still isn't phase 3 tested, even though it's been used by oncologists for over 8 years. Why? It's just adding cost to the system, and everyone knows it works. But why isn't it getting that extra stamp of approval?
There's as I was doing the research for the show, you told our producers, excuse me, by the way, you're a former Major League Baseball player and an investment banker.
Yes.
You've had a fascinating background.
I basically am a generalist, let's be honest.
But there's also someone who you talked about, our producers, with Lynn Jacoby.
Yes.
Describe Lynn.
Lynn is a wonderful woman. I got to meet her last year in Chicago. She was a person who loved life and fought as long as she could with breast cancer. And she made a mark, very dear mark to Bob Goldberg, who I work with, MyLifeIsWorthIt.org and with CMPI. And in her memory, and people who want to fight that long, we want to do what we can for them. Doctors should have as many weapons at their disposal to fight the cancer as hard as patients want to. Lynn fought and Lynn lived. She didn't basically go out with any sort of negative emotion. She fought and treasured life as long as she can. She was there to meet new people like Bob and I, to be there for weddings, you know, grandchildren's birth, all the things that really make life of value. We can keep you alive, but for what? This is what we do, and that's what we're supposed to be alive to do.
What was the lesson of her life?
Don't give up. Fight. Live your life to your fullest.
But you're also saying we cannot let the current system as it is constituted literally decide without us pushing back and advocating and fighting for our own lives.
Absolutely, because what's happening now, they're offering apps and algorithms to say what the average patient would be, and we determine off that if it costs too much. But no patient is average. I'm sure you've been involved in medical procedures, and you are not an average patient at any one point. There's no average treatment, no average cure, no average recovery period. If we do it by purely averages, we're going to deem some people too expensive, too costly, too old, too sick, too whatever. I don't want to even go down that slippery slope of activity because that's not what's good for society and value. Life in and of itself does have its value.
So when people go on this website, as it's evolving as we speak and growing, what is it that you want people to ultimately find and do on that site?
We want them to look at the site. We want them to sign the petition that we have regarding patient and doctor choice and access to care. There are things that happen like oral parity rulings.
Oral parity rulings.
Where an intravenous chemotherapy versus a pill-based regimen, the pill-based regimen is treated differently and costs more. It's easier to take. I take my medicine at home. I don't have to go to the doctors 2 or 3 times a week for transfusions and have a needle jabbed in my arm. It's like taking a multivitamin. Why is that treated differently when they basically work the same way?
Is it treated differently?
Yes, very much so. And those laws are coming off the books in some states right now. There's also a fail first program where states' insurance were making you fail on your first chemotherapy, the quote unquote older one, before you could get the novel therapy. And in the process of myself, when I was diagnosed in May 2009, if I didn't have the right to do that, I probably would have died. You'd be talking to an empty chair today.
If you hadn't advocated for yourself and believed that your life was worth living, you're not convinced you'd be here today.
No, because in 2009, if we had the British system, which went on quality adjusted life years and cost per year, I would have been deemed too expensive. And my life would basically have not had quote unquote value. It would have been a cost. And I'm not a cost to society. I've been paying my insurance premiums. I'm paying my taxes. I teach at 3 universities. I'm living, surviving, and thriving in the process and contributing back. There have been 52 million life years added. I'm 5.5 through the process in the last 25 years. That adds $4.7 trillion to the economy. That's a huge number. I don't like to start arguing the economics of the situation, but you're really forced to.
Bob Tufts is a former baseball player, investment banker, but now a patient advocate connected with mylifeisworthit.org. I want to thank you for joining us and our friends at Celgene for bringing you to us.
Thank you
so
Steve.
much. Good stuff. One-on-one will continue right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, Celgene Corporation, Wells Fargo Foundation, Barnabas Health, Health Republic Insurance of New Jersey, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.